What a beautiful way to start off meeting for worship this morning. And on top of that, we've had our entertainment here, who's just the most wonderful little one. So I'm Debbie Draper, and welcome to everybody on Zoom and here in the meeting house. We're going to start off this morning. Oh, don't forget, if you could turn your phones off or airplane mode, that would be real helpful, I understand, for the Zoom folks. But we're going to start off this morning with worship and song number 42, Come Ye Thankful People Come.
I can put my earbuds on. Okay. All right. I'm so intrigued by this pastor. I mean, things that he is, things that he has been fighting are amazing in response to the election. She was just yeah, his wife wasn't.
What a great song to start off this holiday week, as if we haven't been holidaying already, but that's a really good one, and I appreciate it. For our centering thought this morning, I'd like to share this big event that happened in my life. You see, 20 years ago yesterday, I had the second of 2 big back surgeries for degenerative disc lumbar scoliosis. Some of you might remember that, and some of you haven't known that long, so it was a thing, let me tell you. The first of the 2 surgeries was 12 days before that on the 11th, November 11th, and now we've reached the 20-year anniversary. So it's a wonderful time for me to be grateful and reflect on that. So I'm gonna, if you'll bear with me, I want to tell you a little bit about one of the things that occurred. Before the real problem was discovered, I was misdiagnosed for 4 years, and my leg hurt so bad when I stood up that I couldn't stand long enough to unload the dishwasher all at one time. And walking was just torture. When we had, here we were singing 3 songs during a service, and the middle one we sat down, and the other 2 we were standing up, and it hurt so bad to stand up, but I was going to do it. leaning on the bench in front. And then it turned out after the surgery, I could stand up, and they had quit the sitting down one. I was like, this is my accomplishment. But anyway, but all kinds of revelations and experience happened during that period of time for me. And some of them were kind of spiritual, and some of them were more tangible things. But I thought I would share just one of those and a little bit of advice this morning on my big anniversary. This starts with a hospital chaplain who loved coming to see me. So, by the way, if you're ever hospitalized, they ask a question about your religion. My suggestion is to leave that blank. Anyway, this lady told me over and over, she just kept coming in my room, how blessed I was. So she must have said that 4 or 5 times every single day. And to be fair, she probably was seeing a lot of people that weren't going to have a real great outcome. But it was a lot. And so I have to bring this up again, Phil, but I've told him this before. But one time Phil was in my room, and here she comes. And and I was trying real hard with my eyes to make him stay. But he thought she was a visitor. And he was, oh, well, you got a visitor now, I'll take off. And I'm like, So I don't know if you remember this, Phil, but
it's coming back.
20 years later. So I think that we need to have, we're going to develop a code word for Phil, and that means don't leave, just don't leave. Okay, that's my second suggestion. But anyway, when you're in the hospital for 5 days, and then home for a week, and then back for 4 more days, with the 2 surgeries, and you're in a body brace, and everything you do hurts, including, sneezing or anything, it's just killer. Then you have a lot of time to overthink things. And so I got to thinking about this woman telling me that I was blessed all the time. And I heard that comment from other people too. And the question just came to me, what does that mean to be blessed? And so I decided that what they were trying to say was that I was somehow special and maybe like chosen to be better or something. Of course, I still had pain, but I knew the original pain was gone. But there were a lot of other things going on in my world at that time. And like one of the teachers where I'd worked had just been diagnosed with cancer, and the kids were worried about me because I was just having surgery too. And then my sister had a friend and coworker who also had back surgery, and she told him that, it was going to be better and not a big deal, just hard for a short time. But his problem turned out he had cancer in his back. And then I started thinking about the people in third world countries who would never have access to such surgery, but had the same problem and had no relief coming. It was not going to ever happen. And then it occurred to me that some people right here in this country didn't have insurance and couldn't have the surgery. That concept of being blessed became so uncomfortable because I was no more deserving than any of the other people I was thinking of. So the fact is that I could have this surgery because of when, where, and to whom I was born. I had no input in that and never did anything at all to influence those things. It just was what it was. I did have a job that had insurance, but that's just really part of life right here in my spot of the world in Plainfield. So my conclusion is that I was and still am simply lucky. To call me blessed insults those who are not so lucky. Saying that someone is blessed does sound so good and comforting, so I too say it sometimes, but I sort of feel like I'm lying, because I think I know that, they're lucky. So I don't underestimate the value of luck. And on December 26th this year, my sister is having the new version of the same similar back surgery. She's lucky too. I think people will probably tell her she's blessed, but I will try to point out how lucky she is. So it's time for announcements this morning. If you could, say your name first so everybody can hear and see who's talking, and we will start with the Zoom folks. If you have any announcements. Zoom's quiet so far as I can tell, but if anything comes up, be sure and speak up. And how about right here in the room? Any announcements here?
Sandy Beard. I have a shameless plug. Next Saturday is a craft fair at the Hendricks County Fairgrounds from 9 to 4, and my husband and I will be there and stop by and say hello.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lookabill, and I think most of you probably know that we're having a funeral here this afternoon, and we're serving lunch afterwards. Any of you who can stay, I mean, everybody doesn't have to stay, but if some of you will stay and help set up the tables, depending on how many are there, that might take 5 minutes or 25 minutes, but we do need help with it. We need to get more tables out and get chairs and stuff like that, so we'd appreciate your help.
Hi, my name is Josiah Hostetler. I wanted to make an announcement that Western Yearly Meeting will be holding a worship meeting on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at Valley Mills at 5, and Jeff will send the announcement out to the meeting.
Becky McClung. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to go today at 3 o'clock. The Indianapolis Philharmonic Orchestra has a concert, and Sandra Hayes Hartman plays first violin in it, and it's awesome. And it's up at Pike Performing Arts on Zionsville Road. But if you are looking for something wonderful to see, I would recommend it. And she's not here for Charles to get up and plug her, so I'm going to.
This is Joanne Gulley, and I'm making an announcement on behalf of Anita Kamick. Friends, have you ever thought you might want to start composting at home, but didn't really know how to get started, or maybe did not have the space for it? Well, the Fairfield composting program is for you. If you're interested in finding out about the Fairfield composting program, please plan to attend an introductory presentation where we will discuss why someone might want to compost and how the program works. On Sunday, December 1st, Anita will present the program during chat room, and will also present the program after meeting for worship the same day for those who cannot make it to chat room. The presentation will be held in the dining area, and she will provide a light lunch with the presentation after meeting for worship. She anticipates the presentation and Q&A will last no longer than an hour. So, here's your opportunity to do something good for the earth.
Yeah, Deborah, I have an announcement. Good morning, friends. Starting in January, we're going to have 5 Sundays, the first 5 months of the year, where we're bringing in folks who are well-versed in different aspects of Quaker history and theology and what's going on among Friends today. 2 of these friends will likely be familiar to you. Tom Ham, who will be here in January and February. We're hoping to do this the first Sunday of each month during our chat room time. And we're starting it early enough so that we'll have ample time for people to ask any questions because they're such good resources. Tom will be handling Quaker history. Paul Buckley will then be coming to talk to us about Quaker theology. And Paul is just incredibly bright and well-versed, and I think you'll enjoy that too. We also wanted to hear from someone in the international Quaker community who is, has a wider experience among Friends than many of us. And so Jackson has volunteered, has asked a gentleman you know from Earlham School of Religion, Myron Montano. And Myron is from where? Bolivia. He's a Bolivian friend, but he's been traveling and working among Friends, and so he will be here to present in March. We have to get him before he heads back, before the seminary ends its semester. So if you could mark the first Sundays of your month to join us during those times, I'm sure you would be, I'm sure you'd appreciate what they have to teach us. Thank you, friends.
Friends, please join me for a moment of prayer. Dear loving God, we thank you for this time and space of community and peace. We thank you for the sound of a child's voice. We give thanks for all the people in the world doing good work, humanitarian aids, cooks and chefs, teachers, administrators. Please hold all those in this country who are bracing for what will come. In this week of Thanksgiving, please help us to lift up our gratitudes and help us also to remember those who don't have. When we leave this place, may we take the peace and serenity we found here out into the wider world. For this we pray. Amen.
Well, sitting in silence and listening to a roar is like being out in the woods and hearing just a little bird, just a soft little bird. make its little bird noises, and it's so pleasant. Well, we kind of passed a milestone in our family this past year. We've now lived in our home 25 years, the longest place either one of us have ever lived. So this past summer, we decided to freshen up the homestead, starting with the most important room, yet also the most humble, that place where the most pleasant and enduring memories are made. Of course, I'm speaking of the garage. And thanks to Rita Goss's labeling machine, there is now a place for, there you go, she's holding it up. There is now a place for everything, and everything is in its place. We got done with the garage. We moved on to our bathrooms. The faucet company, Delta, makes a line of faucets they say anyone can install. So I went to Lowe's and bought 4 of them and discovered Delta lies. I ended up having to ask my plumber, Bill Eddy, for help. He lives across the street from me. If you don't have a friend who's a plumber, you really should find one. As the Bible reminds us, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to do the plumbing yourself and a time to have your plumber friend help you. So Bill came over to do what I could not do, a lesson I'm taking to heart in this season of change. Do what you can and not what you can't. That's what we've been talking about. Do's and don'ts in a time of change. So this is one of them. In times of change, you do what you can, not what you can't. I had 2 interesting experiences recently involving friends of mine and their reaction to our nation's challenges. One of my friends is withdrawing from the world, becoming almost turtle-like, drawing up into a hardened shell. He has vowed not to read a newspaper, listen to the news, or go on the internet for the next 4 years. Total withdrawal, going off all media, cold turkey. Another friend of mine is doing just the opposite. He is determined to single-handedly save America and then the world, and he has a plan. First, he wants to run for the Indiana legislature. Then he'll become the governor of Indiana, and from there he'll become the president. He's on a 12-year time frame. Now, while he's doing this, he's also going to eradicate Christian nationalism and do something about Vladimir Putin, he said. He said, what will you be doing to change the world? I said, well, I think I'm just going to write and speak and be the best husband, father, grandfather, friend, and pastor I can be. And he looked at me so disappointed. He said, that isn't enough, that I needed to do more. And I felt like such a slacker, like a huge, slimy slug of a failure. That night I was lying in bed thinking, and it occurred to me that saving the world is just like plumbing. You do what you can, not what you can't. My turtle friend is making a mistake. Checking out is not an option. I mean, obviously checking out is an option and many people do it, but it's not a healthy option. It's not a good option. But my friend who is committed to doing everything, fixing everything, changing everything, single-handedly saving the world is also mistaken. No one person can do it all. There's a well-known term in psychiatry given to people who think they're in charge of everything, that everything depends upon their functioning, and that term is Messiah complex. also known as Savior Complex or White Knight Syndrome. And while it's not an officially accepted medical diagnosis, it's nevertheless a very real thing when people feel they are destined or called to save the world. That friend of yours who got religion and won't shut up about it, that's the Messiah complex at work. Its more formal name is pathological altruism. And while at first glance it might seem noble, it is eventually toxic, since no one person can save the world. Pathological altruism is especially prevalent in times of social change, when social anxiety is high and we are inclined to jump into the fray to do anything and everything we can. But that is also when it is most dangerous, because we not only do everything we can, we also attempt to do what we can't. Consequently, people with pathological altruism often end up clinically depressed, burnt out, with broken relationships, suffering poor physical and mental health. It messes you up. And while we have called that syndrome the Messiah complex, it is important to remember that the first thing the actual Messiah, Jesus, did was ask 12 friends to help him. Keep that in mind. No one person can do it all, so do what you can, not what you can't. But remember this too. We can always do more than we think we can. We can always do more than we think we can. We are powerful in ways we don't appreciate. Don't sell yourself short. Don't underestimate the power of simple and sincere acts. I know I've talked before about the first black man I ever met, Mr. Virgil Foster. We called him Doc. But as I was thinking about him, it occurred to me that he was the only man from my childhood who I never addressed as Mr. So now I am inclined to call him what I should have called him as a child, Mr. Virgil Foster. In 1920 in Danville, there were a dab over 100 black people in our town of 2,000. And then on June 7th, 1923, the Ku Klux Klan held a rally on the north side of our town square. 12,000 people from all over the state gathered in our town, resulting in a mass exodus of black people from Danville, so that when the 1930 census was conducted, only 3 black people remained: Mr. Virgil Foster and his mother and father. Mr. Foster was born in Danville in 1897, so was 15 years old when construction was started on the Hendricks County Courthouse in 1912. Mr. Foster was hired to carry mortar to the masons. He spent most of his life within a mile of that courthouse, the courthouse he'd helped build as a youth. There's a rocking chair in the office of the Republican newspaper where Mr. Foster would sit when he visited. And if you visit the newspaper today and sit in the Foster rocker without permission, Betty, the editor, gives you the stink eye. Don't even think about sitting in that chair without her permission. And she is the one who told me about Mr. Foster carrying the mortar for the courthouse, and once said, you know, if you took out the work Doc did, the courthouse would collapse. If you took out the work Doc did, the courthouse would collapse. When the courthouse was dedicated in 1915, the architect was there, along with the governor and every dignitary from 50 miles around. I've seen the pictures, and I saw one picture, and Mr. Foster was in it, in the back row, where carriers of mortar always seem to end up standing. VIPs up front, mortar carriers in the back. It's always been that way. We know who gave the Gettysburg Address, but we can't name one gravedigger at Gettysburg, can we? So it is with courthouses and mortar carriers. But just you try doing without them. The courthouse collapses. Do what you can, not what you can't. What mortar are you going to carry? What essential work are you being called to do in this time of change? What will you contribute to keep the structures of decency strong and steady? The mortar you carry might be writing a letter to the editor supporting the rights of immigrants. The mortar you carry might be reaching out to a young person struggling with their sexual orientation and doing all you can to protect them. The mortar you carry might be inviting the immigrant family down the street to your house for Thanksgiving dinner. The mortar you carry might be inviting a lonely person with no community to take part in this community. Look for the mortar you can carry. We cannot ignore the world, as tempting as that might be, nor can we by ourselves save it. But we can, in sincere and simple acts, carry the mortar that will bind our nation together. And we can always, always do more than we think.
Paula Cardoza-Jones. I've been thinking a lot about what I can do. I don't mean to presume that all of us had the same views of the recent election, but I, for one, have been very disappointed. And I decided to commit myself every day to making one contact to someone about some issue that I care about. Recently, I don't presume that everybody feels the same way, but I think some of the proposed nominees for appointments for office are, let's just say, unqualified. So I've been sending contacts to officials, senators in particular, expressing my doubts about their qualifications. And if I do that every day, it's going to be 365. If I can get another 100,000 people to do it, that's going to be a lot of contacts expressing opinions that maybe eventually will be not able to be ignored. But I don't like to think of this as carrying mortar to keep things intact. I may be wrong about this, but I think it was Bob Marley that compared people to little axes. And a lot of little axes can eventually fell a giant oak. And so that's what I am. I'm trying to be destructive of the things that I think are terribly wrong. So I urge you, whatever metaphor you want to use for your own actions, to do what you can. And thank you, Phil, for that message.
those who have suffered alongside them. But even have to love those who have caused me suffering. This to me is the hardest work of all. I can love